This video is like a postscript to the last one I did, the last video being about the two inquiries, the two reports into the Muslim rape gangs in Oldham and Rotherham. What I want to do is to back up the point I made, which is that this is simply what Muslim men do, or rather what rape-aged Muslim men do. And I want to show how that is not me talking, that's the data talking, that's the data saying that. So this, you don't assume that I was just running my mouth off for the sake of it. I gave some evidence in the last report, particularly what happened to that Sophie girl who was raped 8 times in one evening at age 12. Now, let me go first of all. I want to start by looking at the J report, because that shows the that deals with the numbers of victims of these rape gangs in Rotherham. There, if you see that, that's the independent inquiry into child sexual exploitation in Rotherham 1997 to 2013 by Alexis J. Let me scroll down a bit. This is the report that came out in 2014 that said that there had been 1,400 victims of child sexual abuse in Rotherham in those years, in those 15, 16 years. Now let me just go down to the executive summary. There. Now she does get to the point, Alexis J. Executive summary: no one knows the true scale of child sexual exploitation in Rotherham over the years. Our conservative estimate is that approximately 1,400 children were sexually exploited over the full inquiry period from 1997 to 2013. So that's a conservative estimate. Might well have been more, is what they're saying. And then here, this paragraph: by far the majority of perpetrators were described as Asian by victims, yet throughout the entire period counsellors did not engage directly with the Pakistani heritage community to discuss how best they could jointly address this issue. So at least conservatively 1,400 girls, and by far the majority of perpetrators being described as Asian. Okay, how big was the Muslim population of Rotherham at that time? Let's go to some NHS data and also census data. So I'm taking census data from 2011. This means I'm trying to be conservative with all the data. I'm not taking the numbers in 1997, where the numbers of Muslim males in Rotherham would have been relatively very few. I'm taking them at the higher end. That's 2011, and this inquiry period went from 1997 to 2013. So what you have here now, this document, that's Rotherham Clinical Care Group, so it's the NHS Trust, giving key statistics for Rotherham 2011 census. Main religions. The first point is the main religions, and what it says there is Muslim in 2011 was 9,614 Muslims, 3.7% of the population. That's what the NHS data states, but based on the 2011 census. So 9,614, 3.7% of the population, and that's backed up by this report here, which this is UK census data. So that's UK census data, and that's for Rotherham. Okay, so and there's a map of Rotherham there. And this is Rotherham Borough, by the way. I'm taking it that all of this is not Rotherham Town, which has about 100,000 people in it, but Rotherham Borough, which has in 2011 had a little under 260,000, about 257,000. Now this UK census data also says that the number of Muslims was 9,614 Muslims in 2011. Again, that amounts to about 3.7% of the population of Rotherham Borough. Now, I could focus, if I wanted to get a smaller number and I wanted to push the data harder in favour of the case I'm making, I would focus on Pakistani numbers, just to give you some context. That's Rotherham Council's own data. Ethnicity of Rotherham population in 2011, if I just do that for the Pakistani. So the Pakistani number there, if you can see that, that's 7,600, so 2,000 fewer, or the Pakistani population is 2,000 fewer than the total Muslim population. Total Muslim population is 9,600 in 2011, and but the Pakistani population was 7,600, or 2.96% of the population. So fairly substantially lower. With all the numbers I'm using here, though, I'm trying to err on the side of caution, as did Alexis J. Basically trying to giving Muslims the benefit of the doubt on numbers, erring in favour of them, on making the case easier on them, so that I'm not accused of bending the data to suit my case. Okay, so but the other reason also is the authorities can talk about Pakistanis or race, and they don't get into trouble. They're not going to get prosecuted for inciting race hatred, which I think that is why they refer to Pakistanis and to race in general. If I were try to talk about Pakistani men doing this and Pakistani men doing terrible things, then my feet wouldn't touch the ground. I'd go to jail for incitement to racial hatred. This is part of the purpose of multiculturalism. It's to grind people down, to undermine people's integrity so that people don't oppose you. If you can get, it's quite a simple psychological technique. If you can get people to assent to something that they know is wrong, they know just isn't reality, or that they know is morally wrong, if you can get them to go along with it, if you can get them to swallow a load of rubbish without saying anything about it. For instance, that diversity is strength. If you can get people simply to stay silent and to accept all that rubbish, then what you do is you take away their standing to oppose, their sense of their own integrity. It's not hard to do. It's like sliding the spine out of the person you're dealing with, so that they then become sort of neutered opponents, and they won't oppose you. And that's very nice if you are in power and you want to get more power. You get more power by basically reducing any opposition to your power and grinding down the people you rule, disempowering them. That makes you more powerful. So it might be dangerous for me to start referring to Pakistanis. So it's safer to me to refer to the Muslim population, and also it shows that I'm being more conservative with the data. So I won't go with the 7,600 Pakistanis. I'll go with 9,600 Muslims, as per the UK census data, or 3.7% of the population. Now, if you say that the Muslim population in 2011, so during the inquiry period of 1997 to 2013, about its highest level was, almost its highest level, would have been in 2011. And so 9,600. Now, it isn't women who are doing the raping young English girls, usually between about the ages of 11 and 14. It's women are not equipped to rape. It is the men who are doing it. So that's one half the population, and it's not very old men. It's not young baby boys. It is what I refer to as rape-aged Muslims. Now, rape-aged Muslims, according to an initially suppressed police report in about a decade ago, I think it might have been 2011 or 2013, they gave rape age for Muslim males as being between, or they didn't use the phrase rape age, but they said these crimes involve males generally between 17 and 40. I would go a bit further than that. Probably 17 seems a little bit on the young side. I haven't seen many getting convicted at that age, but I'd go a bit higher, up to 43, so between about 17 and 43. Now that amounts to a bit under 1/3 of the population, about 30% of the male population. So the total we're looking at is 15. So if 30% of the male population is 15% of the total Muslim population. Now, if you multiply 9,614 by 15%, well, let me do that here. I've done it already. So you see that 9,614 times 15%, that gives you 1,442, which is, that's a bit of a coincidence in that Baroness J, in her report here, she said that, and I'll just read it again because I think this matters. No one knows the true scale of child sexual exploitation in Rotherham over the years. Our conservative estimate is that approximately 1,400 children were sexually exploited over the full inquiry period, and by far the majority of perpetrators were Muslim males, Asian males. So what you have is 1,400 rape Asian Muslim males within the borough, not just the town of Rotherham. That would be significantly smaller. I think that would be about just a bit under 600, 500 or 600 within the town of Rotherham, if you because it's only 100 roughly about that, because it's the town of Rotherham is a lot smaller than the borough of Rotherham. But so if you take it across the borough of Rotherham, you have 1,400 rape Asian Muslim males, gang raping 1,400 young white English girls, but roughly between the ages of about 11 and 14. What that suggests to me, those numbers suggest to me that that must involve the sheer numbers for that number of men to get through that number of prostituted, enslaved, pimped out girls. That must mean that by far the large majority of rape Asian Muslim males between 17 and 43 were engaging in this crime. Now, I think it's probably a lot worse than that, in that a prostitute, or someone who is prostituted, a sexual slave, as these girls were, will tend to have many more sexual partners than the rapist, than the client. I think that seems to be axiomatic. If you remember from the last video, that poor 12-year-old girl Sophie, she was raped by 8 different men in one evening. So four different encounters resulting in 8 rapes in one evening, 8 different men. So you had each of those in that evening, those men had one, so far as we know, one sexual partner. They committed one rape, but she was raped by 8 different men, so she had 8 different partners. And a way to look at this is, if someone has got experience of this, in the comments, if they don't mind, they do it anonymously. If there's anyone there who has ever paid for sex, what do you think is more likely? Is it more likely that the prostitute has more partners, or any one of those prostitutes has more partners in her lifetime, or that you have more partners? I would guess it's almost certain that the prostitute has more partners than the client, because it's her job. She's probably doing it. She might be doing it several times a day, certainly several times a week, I'd have thought. Whereas I wouldn't have thought that the prostitution client, that he is doing it as often as that. He's having as many different partners as that. So I think that probably suggests to me that there were very many more, many times more than 1,400 men doing it. So what that would seem to indicate is that even if you have an awful lot of Muslim men coming in from outside the borough of Rotherham, descending onto Rotherham to do it, it would still probably mean that by far the large majority of rape Asian Muslim men within Rotherham at the time were engaging in this horrific crime. Now, what you might say to that is, well, hold on, Rotherham's a hotbed of Islam. It's highly Islamized. No, that's not the case. Rotherham Rotherham Borough has a lower proportion, a smaller Muslim population, a lower percentage of the Rotherham Borough population is Muslim than in the UK as an average. So it's less Islam, and it's certainly much less Islamized than hotspots like parts of Birmingham or Bradford or parts of Manchester or Tower Hamlets. It's relatively un-Islamized, relatively few Muslims. If I go back to here, I think this one, oops, hold on, if I go back to that one. Now that said that Rotherham Borough, 9,600 Muslims, and that was 3.7%. That's about right, 3.7% of Rotherham Borough are Muslims. If you look at the census data, the Office for National Statistics, the ONS, if I go to the top, religion in England and Wales 2011, let me go down a bit. Muslims were the largest religious group. Muslims were the next largest religious group with 2.7 million people. This is 2011. So the largest religion in 2011 census for England and Wales was Christianity with 33.2 million people, 59.3% of the population. Muslims were the next largest religious group, 2.7 million people, 4.8% of the population. So the UK in general is 4.8% Islamised and Rotherham is 3.7% Islamised. What that means is that Rotherham is Rotherham Borough is almost 1/3 less Islamised, than the rest of, or sorry, 1/4 less Islamised than the average in the UK, or that the UK is about 1.3 times as Islamised than Rotherham Borough. So the UK in general. So throw a dart at a map, that area is likely, on average, to be 1.3 times as Islamised, to have as many 1.3 times as many Muslims as Rotherham Borough. So what that means is that if any problem that you're seeing within Rotherham is likely to be repeated or to be worse in other parts of the country, and very much worse in highly Islamised areas like, again, say Birmingham or parts of Manchester. Now, bear with me a moment. The reason that I think Rotherham came to public attention, the reason why there's report after report, I don't think it's because the problem of the Muslim rape gangs is particularly severe. It is absolutely atrocious in Rotherham, but I think it is probably less bad than in general within England. And there are probably many other parts, many other parts of England where the problem is much, much worse. And I think we will, over the next years and decades, just discover some really eye-wateringly appalling accounts. But what I think happened is, and that's the reason I've got up this Wikipedia page, what I think happened within Rotherham, the reason it came to public attention is not because the Muslim rape gang problem was unusually bad in Rotherham compared to the rest of the UK. It's that the incompetence of the authorities was unusually bad. I think what you had was a really abysmally, willfully, possibly deliberately incompetent police force, South Yorkshire Police, and that intersected with, again, an abysmally, willfully, possibly deliberately incompetent local authority, which was Rotherham Borough Council, and that cocktail of incompetence meant that Rotherham just blew itself open. It is a dismal, dire story. If you read this Wikipedia page about it, you have one report after another. People brought in to look at the issue of drug dealing within the borough. Is there a drug problem in the borough? And they immediately stumble across a Muslim rape gang problem, because Muslims heavily involved in the drug trade, and they're also involved in rape gangs, or overwhelmingly running the rape gangs. And then they report on it. The report gets suppressed and sidelined. They tell other people, and then later there's another report that gets suppressed and sidelined. Then there's a different project, like the risky business project, that seems to get stalled and sidelined and a little suppressed and hindered, and then people complain about that, and the cover-up turns out to do Rotherham Borough more damage than the crime that it was, I think, trying to conceal. And then you get one report after another. It becomes embarrassing to the higher-ups, to national authorities, who want to pretend this isn't going on, we're in control of it. So that they have no alternative but to put in one inquiry after another. And eventually you get the XSJ report of 8 years ago, which eventually says we think that the conservative estimate is 1,400 girls exploited. So I think it was the incompetence that, and not the severity of the relative severity of the problem, which means that Rotherham is the town that is under the microscope. I think it's going to continue to be under the microscope. I think we will continue to see report into report and inquiry into inquiry, because as each inquiry does very, very little. In the last video I talked about, it was the Operation Linden report, which was met with nothing but disappointment and anger by such victims of the rape gangs who had the bravery to speak out about it, because no matter has come from that report. No one's been disciplined, no one's been held to account. They've made various procedural process recommendations, but no one's held to account. In results terms, that inquiry is a hole in the air. As regards, and then there's another operation going on at the moment. That's a National Crime Agency. That's Operation Stovewood. That's a police operation to see if they can get more convictions for this crime. And in 8 years, it's been running for 8 years, it has only got 20 convictions. So it's and it's having to now to appeal for more witnesses to come forward. So Operation Stovewood, that's a failure. When it reports, it will basically be seen as another failure. So I think we will see more and more reports into Rotherham. So Rotherham represents a very, very interesting little drill down into a tiny, small cross-section, a small sample size into the situation across the UK, because it is relatively, it's less Islamised than the rest of the country. So but it's getting a lot of attention and a lot of reports, and those reports are going to keep coming because none of the reports has substantially got Rotherham off the hook, quite the reverse. So that's its function. That's the function of Rotherham, is to be a drill down into what the rape gangs are doing across the UK. Much worse in heavily Islamised areas, as I've said. So that is what I think we're going to see. So when you hear those reports, they're really, I would say there are three things to bear in mind. The first thing is that it is probably worse elsewhere in the UK. The second thing is to repeat my point that raping young white English girls, the carry-home message is that this is what rape-aged Muslim men do. This is what Muslim men do. It's mandated within Islamic doctrine, and the data, this is not me talking, this is the data talking. The data support that conclusion. If you have 14, at least at a conservative estimate, 1,400 children exploited in this way, and if the number of rape-aged Muslim males is no higher, was about 1,400, that suggests to me that the very large majority of rape-aged Muslim males in Rotherham at the time were doing it. And the carry-home message is this is what Muslim men do, and or certainly rape-aged Muslim men do. When they see a young white English girl between about 11 and 14 and they think they can get away with it, they will try and rape her, and they'll do it because she can't resist. So she's not strong enough. So she will. They will rape her, and that is. I keep seeing this getting pinned down, a bit like tent pegs pinning down a ground sheet. I keep seeing more and more pegs on this. Again, recently that case of Sophie, who gets raped in 4 different encounters. She gets sexually assaulted in the first and raped in the other 3, and they appear to be chance encounters with Muslim men who see a 12-year-old girl and decide they're going to rape her, and they do. And this suggests, and that's not, you can't explain that away just as, oh, what a coincidence. How did that happen? Well. The only way you can explain that is by saying this is what Muslim men do. And you keep seeing, and look at this, when you see another batch of arrests for this crime in another town, look at the arrest numbers and compare them find out the Muslim population for that town or that area, and then divide it by 15%, and then you'll find actually it's quite a large percentage of the rape-aged Muslim male population in that town getting arrested. So it keeps getting, the data keeps suggesting this. So that's the second point. And the third point is that the only way to deal with this problem is to remove the Muslim population from our territory, to have very, very substantial, large-scale repatriation. And the thing for our generation is to work out a reasonably orderly, humane, reasonably consensual way of accomplishing that. It's a little bit like, the way I put it is, Muslim males do this to young white English girls in the same way that dogs chase cats. Not every dog chases a cat. I was brought up, our family, we had Alsatians, and some of them were a bit fierce looking, but I only once recall one of those dogs chasing the cat, and they got on all right with the cats that we had, but that doesn't. So not all dogs chase cats, but nevertheless, it's a truism. Dogs chase cats. It's just what they do. So if you have a cat's home, say a cat rescue shelter, you're not going to allow dogs on there. If your friends visit, you'll say, don't bring your dog with you. You're probably not going to get a dog at that cat shelter, because you never quite know when it's going to chase and kill one of the cats. And I think that the same is true with this crime. If the data are saying that this is what Muslim men do, then really the only way to stop this horrific, totally unacceptable problem, very, very widespread problem, is to repatriate, to remove the Muslim population from our land, and to find a way to do it reasonably humanely and consensually. Now, I actually think that is unavoidable. I think that is going to happen on whatever I say. And I should stress, none of what I'm saying is actually me saying it. It is the data saying it. It is reality talking, not me. And similarly, I think that the solution, the removal of the Muslim population, I think that is going to happen. If I got run over by a bus tomorrow, I think that will happen if and when, or I would say when, the economy breaks down, then the welfare state breaks down, then the state authority breaks down, and then I think populations will settle out quite hard along ethnic lines, and then I think invader populations, foreign populations, including especially the Muslim population, will repatriate themselves out of the country that has become impossible for them to live in. So I think this problem is going to solve itself comprehensively, but I think that will happen once the system breaks down. And I think that is the only way that it's going to get solved. It is not going to get solved by one inquiry after another, inquiring into the previous inquiry, which is what appears to be happening in Rotherham, and I suspect possibly may turn out to happen with the Oldham report that I went through in my last video. Thank you.